Are you ready? No. Are you ready for Dagger to the Heart, the long-anticipated, long-term fantasy role-playing game from Matt Mercer and Darrington Press was sneaked earlier this morning at Gen Con. We have our first report from Gen Con. Of course, it's coming to us from CBR, so take anything that it says from a grain of salt. You know, it was a game reviewed by guys who aren't really gamers. There's going to be a lot of things in this that sound really familiar. But this is what we know bare bones so far. It is a 2d12 system that also uses a couple other dice, Savage Worlds. It has hope and fear mechanics. It has player interaction mechanics that sound similar to Dungeon World. Characters can die in this game, and death can be very devastating, but they do have the option to go out in blazes of glory. The system feels a little crunchy. There is both character sheets, dice, and cards. All things you're going to have to worry about. The character sheet is about 3 pages, it looks like. The people who got to see the sneak peek got a chance to play with Travis Williams and the creators. The creators are Matthew Mercer and the same guy that brought us Illuminated Worlds Candle Obscura. What's his name again? Spence Stark. Spence Stark is the same guy who wrote Candle Obscura and is working on Illuminated Worlds, and who used to work for Blades in the Dark. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of things that sound familiar in here, where you're going to go, wait, that sounds a lot like Powered by the Apocalypse. That sounds a lot like Powered by the Apocalypse. So this is the takeaway. This game feels like it's a really great advertisement for Powered by the Apocalypse. Now, mind you, this is still in the playtest, and Mercer and Spencer and Travis made us very clear that it's at least a year before we'll see it in the market. So I know we were expecting them to have better announcements regarding Daggerheart and Illuminated Worlds, but as of now, as of this morning, at least a year. What happens in about a year from now? Well, 2024 Dungeons and Dragons should have been running at least 6 months, if not less. So if they time it right, it could, come out just in time to pick up the slack if D&D 2024 fails. Also, what happens about a year from now? Well, Campaign 3 should be ending, and they should be starting Campaign 4. When asked about will Daggerheart be the game that they use for Campaign 4, the predictions are yes. But the actual answer from Mercer and Williams and Spencer so far, Willingham, I'm sorry, I keep saying Travis Williams, it's Travis Willingham, is wait and see. Wait and see. Everybody else is like, all the other industry people are like, yes, Campaign 4 will be Daggerheart. It makes no sense for it not to be Daggerheart. Let's face it. It will not. But the official answer right now is it's still a year to go. Wait and see. Strangely enough, about a year from now, Gen Con 2024, also the end of Campaign 3, the beginning of Campaign 4, maybe, and D&D 2024 will be out for at least 3 months. All right. So, and again, remember this comes to us from CBR, so not the best, but we're going to go through one by one. So these guys had a chance to sit down with Travis Willingham, who I will mistakenly refer to as Travis Willingham, sir. Spencer Stark. Mercer was around, but he didn't play. 4-hour game session, including character creation and then a little adventure. These guys say it is an original game that incorporates concepts and mechanics from a number of different tabletops. Now, people are going to start say, well, the blah, 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 you're just stealing from this, and you're just stealing from that. And, yeah, I guess everybody dips into everybody else's well right now because there's very few original things we can do. So what we're trying to do is take stuff we know, mash it together to create something new, like Kelsey did with Shadow Dark, and then come up with a system that will knock it out of a park and be both easy and approachable and fun and give you the system. So it's Stark, of course, admits that he drew inspiration from several sources in existing games, And for Stark, that seems to be Blades in the Dark, Powered by the Apocalypse. So Powered by the Apocalypse has definitely had a major effect on Stark, whether he consciously admits it or not. It is not Illuminated Worlds. It is not 5e. It is not Powered by the Apocalypse. It uses its own things. At its heart is the 2d12 drive system. You're going to roll 2d12, 2 different colors, because that doesn't sound familiar. One is the hope dice. One is the fear dice. You roll them together to get a total, but depending on which dice is the higher color, then it's how the response. So like if you roll, a 6 on the hope dice and a 4 on the fear dice, it'll be 10 with hope. On the other hand, if you switch that and it's, 10 on the fear dice and 3 on the hope dice, it's 13 with fear. So if it's a hope success, then something good happens, something narrative happens. Maybe you get a second action. If it's a fear roll, then something consequences happens. Success with consequences. Something bad happens, but you still succeed if you beat. So there's also a DC involved. So like 16 with fear. Apparently, there's also an advantage and disadvantage mechanic involved that uses a D6 where you either add or subtract the D6. And then, of course, double D12s is an automatic success with a narrative bonus as well. So if that sounds familiar, obviously it's Powered by the Apocalypse and Year Zero and a lot of other D6 systems. But this is not a D6 system. It is a D12 system. You roll, let's see. Hope rolls tend to either let you win initiative for the next round or stuff like that. Fear rolls tend to give the bad guys advantages for the next round, stuff like that. And there's also a yes and system evolved in similar to stuff we've seen in Powered by the Apocalypse under other indie story-centric style of games. Players have 4 points to spend across 6 different stats, which includes strength, agility, precision, presence, intuition, and knowledge. Different weapons and abilities are powered by different resources, and players add their corresponding score to the attack roll or check. For instance, my rogue had an innate spellcasting ability that allowed me to summon a cloud of darkness if I made a successful agility check with a preset DC. When asking whether a character could do something or had knowledge about something, it was up to DM to decide what ability the player rolled with and what the result could potentially be. Hey, so Mother May I. Note the player characters often had abilities that gave them advantage or allowed them to spend hope or take a point of stress to gain advantage on role-playing and social skills when indicating their successes aren't necessarily driven by combat. So some crunchy mechanics in there. If you're wondering how crunchy it is, here's a picture of the character record sheet. 1, 2, 3 pieces of paper plus cards. I can already say I don't like the cards. Daggerheart is a card-based system. The players use to choose these characters' abilities, each of the game classes, which contains a mix of traditional fantasy classes and new classes like Guardian and Seraph. Okay, those aren't new. You have certain card abilities. However, each class has at least 2 options similar to subclasses that come with additional unique abilities. Also, each class has 2 domains with different powers represented via the cards. Players choose 2 abilities from their classes' 2 domains at the start of the game and choose additional abilities where they level. The player has no more than 5 domain abilities active at once, and other abilities going into a vault that can be swapped out during either downtime or some kind of rest. So I memorize this spell, we take a rest, I put this spell in the vault, memorize a new spell, or memorize this ability. Basically, it's the toggle on and off mechanic from Fusion combined with, long rest switching out from every system that uses that mechanic. Whether they're going to omit it from the toggle on and off mechanic from Fusion. Hey, let's not forget that I helped create Fusion, and the toggle on and off mechanic was one of my things. So I'm going to take credit for that, even if it isn't me. Yeah, that's all me. Yeah, this mechanic of yours with the cards, that was all me. Yeah, because I came up with that mechanic for Fusion. Then you have ancestries and communities, which are also represented on cards and placed on top of the player's sheet. Each interesting community background also comes with some kind of ability or trait spelled out on the card. So people are going to be choosing the cards to get the best best build based upon their class, and then using the ancestry cards and the culture cards to refine their characters, but also find the best combinations to break the game. And the minute you have that mechanic in a game, people are going to use it to find ways to break it. Oh, halflings have a luck ability. And if I take halfling with this background, I get an additional use of my luck ability. And I take a halfling with this background, and then I take this class, I get used more luck abilities. So yeah, that's 5e standard pretty now mechanics. If you're going to have ancestries and backgrounds that give you extra abilities, people are going to find ways to manipulate those to give them extra abilities. Daggerheart is a 3-page character sheet with several cards placed in different slots, and certain pages tucked halfway underneath the main character sheet. However, all the characters' abilities, including stats and stuff, are represented on the page, and there's no need to refer back to the rule book to clarify on a specific ability. Yeah, of course not. Daggerheart seems much more geared towards having a physical character sheet in front of the players, at least judging from the use of cards to inform character record sheet. Thank you. Yes. All right, Daggerheart, 1 point for you. 2 points for you. 1 for using an ability I came up with, even if you're not going to admit it. And even if you actually didn't use an ability from the ability I came up with, I'm still taking credit for it. And 2, refocusing the attention on physical character record sheets. Of course, if you're going to have props, you want to refocus that attention because you want people to buy the cards. Another interesting system is how hit points and armor are used in the game. Players start off with 6 hit points and 5 stress, along with 3 damage threshold numbers. Oh, there's a mechanic that doesn't sound familiar. When a player or creature successfully makes an attack, they roll damage dice ranging in size from D12 all the way up to D20s. So, yeah, my dagger does a D12. My longsword does 2d8. Okay, fine, whatever. Savage rolls D5e, unnecessarily complicated, but sure, it means you get to sell Daggerheart specific dice. If the result of the damage dice roll is below a player's first damage threshold number, they take a point of stress. If the result is in between the first and second damage threshold, they take minor damage, losing 1 hit point. Similarly, a result between second and third damage threshold is a major damage for 2 hit points, and exceeding the third damage threshold reverses in 3 damage for 3 hit points. Each player also has an armor score and 3 armor slots that can take damage for them. They can use that to reduce the damage roll by the number of their armor score. So if a creature rolls a 15, a player with an armor score of 5 can reduce the damage roll to 10, potentially turning severe damage into major damage, but the cost of one of their armor resources. Armor can be repaired as a short rest activity. Okay, so a blade of armor, and armor is providing damage resistance as opposed to being harder to hit. And it's ablative. Again, crunchy, but I love both of that. All right, so 2 more points for Daggerheart. I love that the armor absorbs damage, as it should. And I love that the armor is ablative, so it becomes less useful the more times you get hit, making each time you go into combat that much more risky, veering away from this whole player agency, we can't be hurt mechanic. Thank you, Mercer. I'm excited. Finally, we should mention the death mechanic, which has a lot of meaningful than it is in, say, games of D&D, where, it's impossible to die. When a player runs out of hit points, they have 3 options. They can choose to die in a blaze of glory with automatic critical successes. They can choose to become scarred and permanently remove one of their slots, or they can risk it all by rolling their hope and fear dice and letting the dice determine their fate. If the hope dice is higher, the character recovers, but if the fear dice is higher, they die. I'm always going to vote for Blaze of Glory. Stark mentioned that at this point in time, there's only one way to bring characters back to life in this game with Daggerheart, and it can only be used once. So death seems to have a higher hitback and stakes in this game other than normal fantasy. So death in this game will be a thing. It feels like it's maybe a little difficult to reach, especially with the 3 options. I, of course, will always go for the Blaze of Glory option, unless it makes more sense for the character to be permanently scarred or just risk it. I mean, all the options are good. Risk it, be permanently scar, or letting your dice turn to fate. But with only one way to bring the character back to life in the entire game, and you can only do it once, No matter none of these. Oh, don't worry about it. We'll just go back to town and get her resurrected, like you can, do in high level D&D. Daggerheart is the collaborative between players and GMs. Other like D&D, where does it not say D&D can't be collaborative? They ask the players questions about the table and about the city, and then that helps the DM design the city. What's in the city? Who do you know in the city? Where do you want to start in the city? Oh, there's a bar. What's the name of the bar? Blah, blah, blah. Describe the monsters, describe the NPCs, how you know them, what you're able to tell about them, riff off of each other, help the emerging narrative. So that is hop, skip, and a jump, copy and pasted from Dungeon World, hopefully written better without the uncomfortable politics associated with Dungeon World. But yeah, I have no problem with that. I have no problem with the open-ended asking player characters and letting them help design, as long as I still have final say, especially as we're getting more and more to this demanding my backstory have some relevance to the game mechanics. I know a lot of us don't like that, but it's a thing, and we're going to have to accept the thing, and we're going to have to accept that as the game evolves, my backstory has relevance is going to be more important, even if some of us old fucks. Oh, hey, it's my buddy Aaron the Relentless, my second oldest subscriber. I came in to immediately hear about Daggerheart being a gimmicky game not worth my time. LOL. Oh, yes, it is definitely gimmicky. All the gimmicks. I'm voting. Yes, I'm voting for Just Die, as would I. The death mechanic is bad. Death is still a player choice. You can have a dude walking around with 4,000 scars. Can't lose that agency. Well, unfortunately, that is their target audience. And also, it seems to say that every time you choose that, you do lose one of your abilities to one of their hope slots. So, you do that a few times, you won't have any hope rolls. All your rolls will be made at fear. So it is diminishing returns. But yes, it's gimmicky. I definitely agree it is gimmicky, Aaron the Relentless. This guy's my second oldest subscriber. No hope, sad. Okay, yeah, I mean, open-ended questions. Making GMs and players equal partners in the storytelling seems to be essential ethos of Daggerheart. All right, that's the assumption that it's never been that thing in the game before. The DM and the players have always been equal partners in the storytelling scene of the aspect of the game. Mechanically wise, the GM designs everything, and decides what's, this is here, and this is here, and this is here, and blah, blah, blah. Then he sits down, and he, as my friend used to say, gives them the paint. All right, paint the story in the mechanical setting that I've created, and together we will help see how that evolves. Maybe you don't go to the haunted towers of Figma Flubba. All right, so the story changes. Maybe, that orc horde moves closer. So, yeah, I hate it when people say this. I hate it when people say, oh, this is the first time, because it's just another rub against people who, old school, people who've been playing for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. You're just basically, again, that blanket statement that nobody has done it until you. That all us old players, we played wrong, but now finally you're getting this thing where you're equal partners and going forward with the agency. No, that's fucking bullshit, and you lose any respect I might have had for you comic book resources when you use statements like that, because it's just another shot at old players. Stark talked about blank maps with people, designing features and notable points of interest. Gee, that doesn't sound familiar, Stark. You stole it from Forbidden Lands. I literally have the map for Forbidden Lands behind me, which shows blank places where players can put down towns and name the towns based upon which stickers they roll and stuff like that. So, yeah. Stark is really good at taking other people's work, chopping it up, and putting it back together and making it his work. Now, whether he gives credit to those predecessors or not still remains to be seen. We'll know when Illuminated Worlds comes out and the final Candle Obscura comes out. to see whether Stark acknowledges that, yes, I owe this to Powered by the Apocalypse. I owe this to Blades in the Dark. I owe this to this, to this game. So yes, it's not the first, Stark. It's still an active playtesting phase, and it's clear the game is trying to balance and tune a lot of different features before it's ready for sale. However, I thought it was interesting how in-game encourages power gaming. A lot of player abilities have synergies that can wrap up to a lot of damage or provide them with awesome moments without being too focused on optimal builds, and seems to be able to pivot between narrative freeform and more structured game with built-in rails. More importantly, Daggerheart seems to be fully fleshed out game system instead of just a game built on a specific world, which I think was one of the major concerns of the game when it was announced. Still a work in progress. I came away very impressed and intrigued by the new system. I think Darrington Press is a hint on their hands. It would be premature to call Daggerheart a D&D killer, except of course the name is literally them saying we're stabbing D&D in the heart. But I think it's a fun alternative for folks wanting a traditional fantasy tabletop role-playing game experience without wanting to read a 500-page rule book to understand the game. Well, if you're going to have this much crunch in it and all these different options, it's going to be a big rule book. There is a better way to do this mechanic than the cards. The cards are a gimmick to convince people to buy the cards. You know, I love the cards when it's prop cards. This is the sword you find. Here's the card for the sword. It has all the information on the sword on the back that you've discovered so far and what the sword looks like on the front. Keep that with you. As long as you have that card, you know what the sword does. I don't have to worry about it. And if you lose the card, oh, well, I guess your character lost the sword, which would probably cause players to cry. But yeah. So the card mechanic, I'm fine with. The card mechanic is part of the character build instead of using something simpler like just toggle on and off. And you have 5 choices ultimately. I like that you're limited to 5. And I understand, hey, what's a great gimmick we can interact to make our game seem more different and to milk more money from potential buyers? Oh, cards. People love cards. People love dice. People love anything physical, tangible, tactile that they can buy to add to their game experience. We love the toys. We love the swag. We love the props. It's deeply ingrained psychological. So they know, Mercer and Stark are smart enough to know that if they make props, people will either make their own or buy the props. And of course, they're going to want I want the rogue specific cards with the alternate artwork. Yeah. So that's just a built-in moneymaker. So yeah, as a businessman, I completely understand that. As a gamer and a game designer, I think that's completely unnecessary. You could do toggle on and off way simpler. Oh yeah, this is a good one. Will the sheet be waterproof? Will the cards be waterproof? What happens if I spill water on my sheet/card? Especially if it's going to be, physical. Is it going to have like is each sheet going to have, a miler thing where I slide in the cards? Or am I just risking that the cards might get damaged? Of course, you could buy one of those little card folders and just put the cards you're using in the front and shuffle the ones you're not using into the back. And then when you get to the moment where you get the long rest to reset the cards, you just put the cards in order again, which a lot of people who use the cards, particularly for spell books, use. So yeah, I like that. If you're going to use the cards, but yeah, Gamma World. Oh, don't forget Savage Worlds, Marvel, or Marvel Savage, or when they did the card-based Marvel game, where every character ended up having heightened strength. So yeah, so we've got a dice pool. We've got a dice system. Innate dice is advantage, disadvantage, hope, fear, 2d12, because let's be different. Gimmick. If you succeed with the hope roll, something good happens in the next round. Narrative. If you succeed with the fear roll, something still happens, but it's something bad happens, like the bad guys win initiative. There's also an advantage and disadvantage dice involved, and apparently damage is multi-dice. So you could have one weapon that does a d6, another weapon that does a d8, another weapon that does 3d20. Bell curve nonsense. It doesn't necessarily mean that the 3d20 dice damage one is only going to do better than the 1d6 damage if you roll 3 1s. And, +1, that's 4. If the guy rolls a 6 and he's got +2, he does automatically doing more damage. So, no. It feels like there is some gimmicks in here to just be gimmicky, to just be different. But, there's a finite number of pools we can dip in for our hobbies. Sooner or later, we're going to run out of interesting ways to do this. I mean, the last truly interesting one was Dread, who used the Jenga, as the way to resolve things. Oh, this game uses tarot cards. It still uses random generation. This game uses, wasn't there one that used, I think it was a joke game, but there was one that used hermit crabs? Or at least somebody suggested the idea that a game of hermit crabs, and but whatever. But I love that it's emphasizing a physical character sheet. I love that death is meaningful and that it's very hard for characters to come back. I love that. I mean, yeah, there's power gaming. So it is going for a comfy middle between the Powered by the Apocalypse players, the recognized 5e players, and of course, what is going to appeal to the critters? Because let's face it, Mar Hawkman, Aaron the Relentless, me, DM Bloodworth, us old fucks, we're not the target audience. The target audience has to be the critters. I want to make a system that's attractive enough to the critters that they will follow that system if that is the system that Campaign 4 uses, as they are insinuating. Again, initial thoughts from everybody else in the industry is, yes, Campaign 4 will be using Daggerheart. Initial response from Mercer and Starks and Willingham is, wait and see. We're still playtesting it. Let's see where we are a year from now. Conveniently, where we are in a year from now would be about the time when 2024 D&D first reviews are going to start coming in, and at about the time when certain copyrights expires, and at about the time where it'd be a good time to release a new game to attach yourself to get that fan base to follow you. And also, it'd be about the time that Campaign 4 would be starting, right? So, yeah. I mean, Mercer's not dumb. Mercer, Willingham, not dumb. I don't know about Starks yet, because so far he seems to just be a copy and paste. So I'm going to wait to read the final Illuminated Worlds, because Candle Obscura, I think it's safe to say they've already kind of given up on Candle Obscura. But we're still waiting to see what they do with Illuminated Worlds and other possible worlds with that. And, of course, what they're going to do with this. And how much of it is Mercer, how much of it is Starks. And I hope Starks is a man enough to admit, yeah, I stole this ability from here. I stole this idea from here. I stole this idea from here. As opposed to going, oh, yeah, it's the first time anybody's ever seen this mechanic. Because I can tell you right now that toggle on and off mechanic, that's not new. I came up with that. I don't care what anybody else says, even if it existed before I came up with it. What do you think? I wanted more information, obviously. I wanted to see a play test. I wanted to see a physical copy. Hopefully people who are actually more in tune with the gaming community as opposed to comicbook.com guy will have reviews as the day progresses. But the review from comicbook.guy, there are things in here I'm excited about. I hate to say it, but yeah, there are mechanics in there I actually like that I would actually use or want to see in play. Again, of course, I understand I'm not the target audience. The critters are the target audience. I'm Matt Mercer. I need to make a game that the critters will buy. I need to make the game that the critters will follow when we start Campaign 4 or whatever. That's my target audience, not the OG GM. Because the OG GM, as we know, is a clown. What do you guys think? There's a link down below if you want to read the review. Hopefully, as the day progresses, we will have more reviews from other people, maybe even a playtest packet on the webpage by the end of the week. I was so hoping we would get something. I was like, well, if they don't say anything by Monday, we're probably fucked. Well, they have come out. They've come out, I would say, not as strong as I would like, but definitely strong. Of course, again, we're seeing this through the filter of CBR.com, and CBR.com is not the best. So if anybody is at Gen Con within the sound of my voice, please shout out. Let us know what you think of Dagger to the Heart. Please let me know what you're thinking. Are you excited about 2D12 Dagger to the Heart? Does it sound really familiar? Because yes, it does. Are you hoping like I am that it will be the game that takes the critters away from D&D, forcing Hasbro to reinforce that 2027 sword that is hanging over Wizards about how we perceive D&D when D&D 6X comes out in June 2027. Let me know what you're thinking. That's about 30 minutes too long of talking about this. If you haven't had a chance to subscribe to the vlog yet, please subscribe. Of course, like, share, buy my merch. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you all later. Stay safe, and again, look forward to more news as it comes out from Gen Con. See ya. Bye, Aaron.